Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Harry Potter Trading Card Game podcast. My name is Sammy,
And I'm Huamin.
and today we are going to talk about a tournament that we had at the beginning of September and go over the results, give our thoughts like we normally do with a tournament, and kind of talk about where we think the game's at and some of the cards used, the decks, and whatnot. So we were preparing for this episode, and I'll just start out by saying that we both kind of agreed that this is probably one of the weirdest tournaments we've had in terms of some of the decks and cards used. Not in a bad way, just made us really scratch our heads at some of the choices, surprised us, made us excited, a whole bunch of different feelings. Do you have anything overarching before we dive into the decks?
Just that this was one that I did not play because I had other commitments at the time. But if this is what happens when I don't play, maybe I should not play more often so we get some real spicy things happening.
It was definitely interesting. So we're going to break down the decks and talk about kind of the starters and some of the cards surprising within them. We'll start with the last place deck and kind of work our way up.
Shoutouts to Drew, always trying to make Spiral Dive work. Always trying to make Weatherby work as well. He's been working on Weatherby stuff for a long time. I think Weatherby is just like too frustrating to use for me in a normal, like actual competitive deck. I just don't want to put in the time and analysis, but like props to him for trying to make it do something.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk before the tournament of what letters do the lessons start with, and what are the lessons that are played the most, and what cards then start with those like four letters, and which ones blah blah blah. So there's a lot of thought put into this deck, and you get a lot of free shit, like so many free cards from this. Are they great cards? Some yes and some no. Definitely a toss up, but you do get a lot of free stuff. So it is cool. I want Spiral Dive to work for him so badly one day. Don't know if it ever will, but I love that you keep trying. I will say that we noted that this was also an item-based kind of deck, which I think is a little different than what he normally does. So it was cool to see that there was kind of a bit of a different take on the Spiral Dive thing. And I think part of that came from Quick Camp Kit, if I remember correctly, which is just a new card that draws cards based on the number of items. So lots of like trying to use Quidditch World Finals cards in these decks, which was cool to see too.
Yeah, Quick Camp Hit. It's a really good draw engine.
It's
Very
so
easy
good.
to turn on to make you draw like 3, 4, 5 cards a turn, which is just a lot of cards. And he's also running Essential Knowledge Test, EKT, to like,
Yes.
at some point, like maybe you don't want to draw 5 cards when you have like 10 cards left in your deck. So EKT's one,
Yes.
it's an item, it adds more to Quick Camp Kit to draw, but also it can just shut it off when you don't need it. I also
Yeah.
remember he's running Pep Talk in the side, and I think one of his comments was that like free Pep Talk when someone plays a potions lesson is like
Oh,
just
it's awesome.
really, really strong. Yeah. So if you are thinking about Weatherby, you might want to look into just the adventures that kind of try to hose other strategies, because if you can play those adventures out for free, or characters that do the same thing, like cheating one action is good, cheating 2 actions is like wow. Yeah.
Yeah, the deck does take a lot of prep and like pre-thought. Every deck should, but this one just takes more, and the build around is so much tighter because of the letter pairing that you have to do.
Yeah, the other notable thing about this deck is this is one of the 2 decks in this tournament that is running the Omnioculars Gringotts combo. Going into the set, we thought that Omnioculars and Gringotts would be a very strong combo. Unfortunately, both of the decks that are playing it did not perform that well. So I don't know. Is it that Omnioculars Gringotts is not as strong as we thought? Is it that like the shell surrounding the combo it was not as good? Like was it something else? Just variance in tournament? I don't know. It seems strong. Draw a card, gain an extra every turn, but
That's
didn't.
actually a good quick pivot. We forgot to mention that since our last tournament, which I believe was in May, we have
Oh yeah.
had a BNR update as well as the errata of some cards, and we released a new set that had 90 cards. So this is kind of the first tournament after some of these changes, which usually means that there's a lot of shifting in terms of what cards people are using and the types of decks and that kind of thing. I don't think it really affected this deck in a great way, other than giving it some tools like Quick Camp Kit and whatnot. But some other decks will definitely see the influence of those changes.
Sure, sure, sure. Okay. That's enough about Weatherby. Cool character, just frustrating for me.
Yes.
If you can make him work, make him work. Number 7. This is Kai's deck, starting Trelawney, and this is one of the ones that I like looked at and was like kind of scratching my head on what's it trying to do. There's some neat stuff in here. Like I've always thought that Blood Pops with Professor Sybil Trelawney is like very strong. You can basically set up the top of your deck to have Blood Pops kill whatever you want. 3 costs, take 1 damage and discard a card. Any card of your opponent's is pretty good rate.
Yeah.
There's that. It's running like the good aggressive creatures, Sandstone Gargoyle, Bladeview Dragon, and then it runs Rubius Hagrid to make them hit for 5. That's fine. Putting in that action investment for Rubius Hagrid without any other like support around that, that's kind of it's interesting. Where things start to make me like really question things is that you have 4 baby dragons in your deck and you have 4 care of magical creatures lessons in your deck, which is like
Really
I don't know.
relying on those fetch lessons, you know?
Yeah, and also this deck kind of feels to me like it wants to go fast, and that's not really what fetch lessons do, because the turn they come into play is the turn that they don't provide any lesson power.
Mhm.
So if you're like, all right, I want to play Sandstone Gargoyle as my 4th action in the game, so I'm going to go lesson, 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 Sandstone Gargoyle. The first 2 lessons can be whatever, but on that second turn, if you're playing an advanced lesson, you don't have 3 power in play, so you can't actually play your Sandstone Gargoyle. Trelawney does like help with that, in that Trelawney can really fix your draws and make sure that you're getting what you need, but there's somewhat of a tension there, I think.
Yeah.
That's not what you want in a deck.
Yeah, I think Trelawney was definitely trying to help balance the rest of that. I think that she just may not be like looking at enough top cards in order to balance the rest of the deck out. It is a pretty low deck in terms of power overall. Like I don't think it
Yeah.
gets above
Like
3 or
3 or
4.
4. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
think
it does
3.
stay super low, but
Yeah.
it does require a lot there.
Yeah. Seems like an interesting, like aggressive deck. Tries to have a couple like key pieces of disruption. You have Vanishing Step, your Blood
Yep.
Pops, Trespasser in the Riddle House. Like these are decent like ways to disrupt your opponent's game plan. And I think
Yeah.
it's just trying to drop Sandstone Gargoyle or Baby Dragon and then coast that out to victory.
Yeah, and
Or
it's also
several of
trying
them.
to do 3 different lessons in one deck without running a professor as a starter, which you can do, and the advanced lessons from the third year definitely help with that, but it's just very challenging to make work effectively. And so probably tightening some stuff down would make the deck just do more of what the deck wants to do.
Yeah, I think there's maybe like you can cut the charms because it's not providing that much to your deck. It's mostly the utility that's in charms, and it's not like kind of central to what's happening. Like you have the direct damage of Magical Mishap, Fizzing Wisbees, and Trespasser is like disruption, but cool.
Yeah, it's an
Interesting
interesting
deck idea.
deck. Yes.
Yep.
And we'll see kind of like where that goes from there. But the next deck is from Carter, and it was all about trying to do a lock. So he's a very control-y player. He really enjoys locking stuff out, and he's also usually very good at figuring out really cool like combos and how cards work together. So this is the second Omnioculars deck that we're going to talk about in the last. And the entire idea was using Omnioculars with Gringotts to constantly draw an extra card while not giving your opponent extra actions. And then the rest of the deck was pretty much Lesson Destruction. We've talked about this before, how Lesson Destruction has kind of evolved over the past year because we kind of hit Lesson Destruction rather hard. We got rid of not Defendo, of
Uh,
Scribbler and
Herbivores and Invisible Ink. Yeah.
that's right. So he's kind of like putting what's left of that together in a shell. It's an interesting deck. I didn't get to play against it, so I can't really say any of the strengths or weak parts of it. But that's kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems with the deck that I'm looking at the list right here is that it's a little hard to get anything done before like the higher lesson counts. Aside from picking on Neville, like the interaction that you have with your opponent is item destruction from lost notes, which items aren't usually like the most threatening thing to you, especially when they're playing like a more aggressive deck.
Yeah.
So it's not going to slow down your opponent too much. And then I guess hitting lessons is okay, but it doesn't deal with board. And then you have like the 3 Diffindos at 8. So it seems like it might have some trouble just trying to stabilize in like the early portions before like you can really just start destroying your opponent's lessons, stopping them from playing the game and healing back up to make sure that you don't die. Cool card I want to shout out is Reptile House. In this deck, it's running 3 Reptile Houses. If you don't know the card, which I would be shocked if you knew the card. It has a really brutal solve of like discarding four of your lessons, but its effect is you can only use one action to play lessons each turn. It's a very strong effect when you're like killing your opponent's lessons every turn. Like if they can't actually build back up to a higher number than they were before, they're kind of just like capped on the number of lessons I think they never have. And you can't solve this lesson or this adventure with the to solve clause because you just lose
Yeah,
the game
no.
if you do that.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I think it's a little slow, but it's cool.
Well, yeah, and I want to give Carter a shout out here too, because he is just really good at finding a weird old card and finding some way that it interacts with something new or just two old cards that interact in like a way that we've never seen. And Reptile House is one example of that. And then he goes and builds a deck with it. And he's just very good at that. And I love that this deck also showcased that skill and the weird ways that these things interact. So shout out to him for just being able to do that as well.
It's cool. Glad to have you back playing with us. Next one we have is Steven's deck, which was starting McGonagall and then trying to play the Witch Sharpening suite of like Witch Sharpening, Ginger Root, Scarab Beetle. And is he running the other one?
Well, so interestingly, while he does run witch sharpening, that card has been ran in previous tournaments, but this was the first tournament that the entire suite was ran, which was kind of how we designed it and what kind of the intention was. So shout out to actually to Steven for actually running the full suite like we wanted somebody to do.
Is he running the entire one? He's not running Armadillo Bile. You can't shout him out like this.
Oh no, he's not. Well, you know what? He's running two other ones that haven't been run before, so I'm still gonna give him a shout out for that because that makes me
Yeah,
happy.
we've seen the Witch Sharpening plus Armadillo Bile before. I think that was
Yes.
Drew's DMS deck in the last tournament that was
Yes.
also doing that plus like Love Potion shenanigans. I remember we
Lots
had
of
like the most,
shenanigans.
yeah, we had the most boring semi-mirror match there where he had
Oh, I
Love
remember
Potion,
that.
I had Love Potion, and then we're like, what's happening here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I remember that too.
that
Yeah,
was
but overall it was a neat deck. It was one of the two Professor McGonagall decks that we had in the tournament. I was the other one, and we'll talk about that later. But also ran Omnioculars and just a couple of like item stuff.
Yeah, Lockhart's hair care potions as well with like very utility focused characters, which is I always like to see that in a deck just because the utility characters are very strong. And if you can
Yes.
run enough, you play hair care potion and it's like tons of value. And then the last thing was he was running an Unfogging the Future Muggle Artifact combo, which is really sick. Also Fire Whiskey. Like these three cards together like can proc Muggle Artifact many, many times in a turn. If you didn't know, Unfogging the Future, it has an ability that, like, during your turn, you can just look at the top card of your deck once per turn. And
Hmm.
then that actually just triggers Muggle Artifact. So Unfogging plus Muggle Artifact is just free 2 damage every turn. Get out more of them, and it starts to scale exponentially. So that's a cool combo.
Yeah, I'm also really excited that somebody tried Fire Whiskey and Muggle Artifact. When we were designing those, I really liked Fire Whiskey, and I'm just glad that that's being used.
It's in such better place than it was in, like, the beginning.
Yeah.
When it was like
Such a
you
better
had to
place.
yeah, no, no, no. It started as like you discard a potions from play or something, and now it's from hand or play. Like
Yes, way
way
better.
better.
So
Yeah.
much more playable.
Oh, and then the last thing I want to talk about is this amazing sideboard of 15 cards that are all unique. That's a power move if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, and it was a pain in the butt for me to have to enter all of this into our database, but good job. Good job.
Cool. Next one, we have Nikki, pretty consistent player for a while now, running a Molly Weasley focus deck.
Weasley Tribal. Love Tribal.
Yeah, not what I would have expected from anything, but we did just print Weasley's grandfather clock in Goblet of Fire, so maybe he
Yep.
thought it was the time
And
to bring that out.
and they got a new
Oh
Ginny
yeah,
in this set too. So they
yes.
got a couple of pieces actually, which kind of came together in a decent way.
Yeah, one of the big things with Weasley's grandfather clock is that it costs a bajillion, but it gets reduced by the number of Weasleys you have, and who else likes items that cost a bajillion but get discounted than Arthur Weasley, who just keeps smacking you with the grandfather clock for a lot.
And it's really cool too because Molly reduces it, but she'll also search for things that then search for a clock, but then also count for clock. The synergy in the deck is just really, really neat. We don't really have anything, I think, that meshes as well tribally as Weasleys, which is really ironic because they're not even keyworded as Weasleys. Yet it's the most tribal thing that we have, and it does
Yeah.
actually work. So like it's just really
Hey,
cool.
hey, 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 hey. One day, Fleur will do. One day.
One day in the far future, probably. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I also want to shout out that the deck also gained Rita Skeeter back in Goblet of Fire,
Oh,
and that just
yes.
really acts as a backup for Arthur and Clock. I actually played against Nick, and if I just discarded Clock, Arthur did nothing. So having Rita as that backup really helps the deck quite a bit. And just overall, there's so much you can do with a colorless deck. You don't have to worry about power. You have to worry about actions, but those are mitigated quite easily with Molly and Ron. So it's not really as big of a drawback as you might think, especially if you start with Ron in your hand, then you just are off to the races and it's incredible.
Oftentimes, like you can slow down a character deck a lot by, they play hair care, you kill hair care. They're like, well, all my cards now cost 2 actions to play. You
Yep.
kill Ron, they're like, great, I'll use 1 action, I'll search up another Ron. Cool.
Exactly. And then I do want to shout out too that they included Zograph in the deck, and Zograph was included, I think, because there needed to be some way to prevent some damage, especially like a really big card. And Zograph is essentially like a counterspell situation to any card played, or does he just prevent the damage?
He prevents
Winkies.
it.
Sorry,
Winky
that's
does
right.
the time.
Yes.
Shout outs to Kai for running 4 Winkies main deck.
Yeah,
That's
for
pretty
real.
wild.
That's
Uh,
bold. Awesome, awesome move. But yeah, so Zograph and then Nick sideboarded Neville. And so the combination when we played of Neville and Zograph made it difficult for me to figure out like when do I play Welsh Green? How do I time this the right way? Some other damage cards I had. So like Zograph, even though he's not a Weasley, did add a neat component that I think the deck really benefited from too.
Especially if we see like more big sources of damage start to
Yes.
become prevalent. Like, sorry, Drew, your spiral dive is a giant source of damage. If they play Zograph and your end game plan is like spiral dive,
Yeah,
you're not
it's rough.
really happy. Yeah, it's a bit
Well, and
rough.
so it got to the situation when we were playing where I was trying to figure out, I know what I have, and I think I had like a malevolent mixture because it's my favorite card, and then I
Yeah.
maybe had like a Welsh green, and I was like, I want a Welsh green into malevolent, but I want to get the maximum amount of damage, or maybe I had like a misbrewed polyjuice and a Welsh green or something. And so figuring
Mhm.
out which one to play first in order to just make him use that card, so because it's once per game, so that the other one could do maximum damage, like it was a lot for me to have to figure out how to play around it. It was really fun and I really enjoyed that, but it definitely just added a new thing for me to have to think about.
Yeah.
Which
Usually with
that's what I want at the end of the day is to have to think more.
Sure, sure. Usually with HBTCG, like on your turn, your opponent can't really do anything.
Yes.
So when we have like Zograph and Winky now, these are very interesting like parts to the game that add a little bit more to it. Which I think that it's like good in moderation. I don't really want like the idea of, oh, I'm just gonna play my turn on my opponent's turn. Because
Agreed.
that's
Yeah,
not,
no.
yeah, that's not really where I think HBTCG wants to be. But like some amount of like control during your opponent's turn is a good thing in my opinion. So,
Yeah, really just forcing your opponent to think more in some way, I think is very good. So that's
yeah.
good. Yeah.
All
The
right.
next deck is another deck that has been brought before by Ben, and it's a Professor Hagrid corridor deck using Hermione's Time Turner, Forbidden Corridor, and really just trying to, I don't know, outlast your opponent and kind of strip them of their stuff on board. He's been refining it a couple of times.
It's a pretty similar deck to I think what he's been running before.
Yeah.
I think the one whatchamacallit, Madame Rosmerta is new. That's a really interesting
Yeah.
card to play. Because one of the problems with like the Hagrid Forbidden Corridor loop is that you just keep drawing cards because you keep tossing your F lessons and then sorry, Care of Magical Creatures lessons. Um and then you're forced to draw a card from Hagrid if you want to return it back to your hand.
Yep.
And then what Madame Rosmerta is doing is that like she's now changing that into heal one, which is basically a swing of two because you're first not drawing and then you're additionally healing one. So that healing
Yeah.
can really add up per
Yeah, it was
turn.
a really interesting choice for the deck. He only ran one, and I wonder if he
Mhm.
ran like two or three, if she would have performed differently and like his games would have gone a little different. But definitely an interesting choice.
It's fine. He's running Time Turner, right? Like he can just
Yeah.
search Rosmerta if he needs it. The other thing that's really interesting is the 3 times Mistbrewed Polyjuice main board. Don't think he has. Yeah, that was not in his previous deck in his last tournament. He's
I think he's
running.
taking a page out of my book with that one.
Yeah. He has one in the sideboard in his previous deck. Yeah, that's also like I think a reaction to the kind of more character-centric meta that we saw of the previous couple tournaments where they were like both won by characters, right?
Yeah, and they just place high. They're very consistent. They do really, really well. A character deck is just a strong deck. I mean, and if you look at the last tournament, many of the decks, five, six of them, ran multiple characters, and many of those characters, like they're just very strong in all the past tournaments. Like character decks tend to just place well and do really, really well.
Definitely a very targeted thing into the meta. Whispered Polyjuice and four times Dementor, also another very anti-character card right there.
Oh,
So
oh yeah, yes.
cool stuff.
Yeah, and he
Nice.
ran a VTJ, which is also
Oh
just
yeah.
something to note. We had talked a couple of episodes ago, I think,
Yeah, that
that
was the last
oh
tournament
yes,
thing.
yes, just run it no matter what. If you're running potions and getting up to like 8 or 9 power,
Yep.
might as well run the one copy you can.
He put it inside. And he's also running four Foglass side. That's kind of exciting to me. Definitely not a card I would have expected to be
No,
run in
so
like
I think I did actually play against Ben, and he played faux glass, and it really screwed stuff up.
yeah.
Sorry, it didn't screw stuff up at that point because I had creatures in play already. I was able to just kind of keep going, and it wasn't hurting me too much, but it slowed everything way, way down, and it was
Yeah.
annoying. But I think it got to the point, if I remember correctly, he had to eventually use 2 actions to play Snape, and then the next turn, 2 actions to play Pomfrey. So
Mhm.
faux glass initially was doing a lot, but then when my
Yeah.
creatures were already out and doing a bunch of damage, he had to start using 2 actions, and it essentially made Faux Glass a pointless card to have him play. And
Yeah.
then I was able to do even more, and it wasn't really doing what it was intended to. So it was shifted a lot depending on the time of the game. And I like a card that is powerful at different times and isn't just like consistently good. It's really dependent on the situation.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Foglass, like it just slows the game down to a crawl.
It really did.
If you're in like the in advantageous position and most of that is due to like cards on board, then like Foglass is very, very powerful because it stops your opponent from attempting to catch up. But also like you have to invest the action and then you're the one that takes the first turn that has one action only, which is probably
Yes.
just the playing of Foglass. So you're giving up a lot to get this like pseudo lock.
Yeah, and interestingly, this is the third deck, I believe, that kind of tried to do some kind of lock situation. There was this,
Mhm.
and then the omniocular decks from before that we talked
Yeah,
about briefly. And so, like, they're all
that's
different kinds of locks, but none of them were able to like lock people out.
sure, sure. I don't think I see Omniocular's Gringotts as kind of a lock in that, like, you're still staying at 2 actions when your opponent plays Gringotts Omnioculars on you. But, like, all you're getting is 2 actions where they're getting a card plus an action every turn.
Yeah, true.
Is strong until you play your own Omnioculars, and then we're all in the same situation.
Yep,
I think may have happened because there are a lot of Omnioculars out there,
there were a lot running
which
around.
yeah, that might be also a shout out to like the previous meta of 4 DMSs,
Yeah.
which was really something.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the previous one deck list from previous tournaments to just kind of compare what happened. But we have 2 decks left. Both of them are bangers, if I don't say so for myself, because one of them was mine. But we'll
Yeah,
talk
of course.
about.
So Izzy was playing his Lynch deck, mono Quidditch, just try to go as fast as possible and kill your opponent. It's a very tempo-based, spell-based deck that runs very little interaction and instead runs a lot of cards that try to help with Lynch to get the most out of his ability.
Yep,
We saw pre-match handshake for the first time in any
wild.
tournament.
Shout out to
Uh,
Arab Southern. Good job.
yeah,
Proud
also
of
shout
you.
out to Izzy. Like, dude, finding this card and like being like, all right, this card works really well with Lynch because like you play lesson into pre-match handshake, and then now you're up 2 more lessons because
Yep.
Lynch put one into play, you search for one and put it into play, and you drew a card.
I
That's
I
very
played against
strong.
this for the last game, and I'm not sure if it was the first game or the second game. He played pre-match handshake, and my response was, "What?" And I had to re I had to reread the card because
Uh,
it just blew my mind that it was being played. But then, yeah, you're right. It worked so well.
and the other one cost Quidditch card that he's running is Timeout, which also with Lynch, you look at the top 6 cards of your deck. If you don't even have a lesson in there, you can, or in your hand, you can just put one on top of your deck, draw
Yep.
it with Lynch, and then play it with Lynch. So very good, like tempo positive plays here. It's running 4 times searching for the snitch to find those large cards. 4 fouled, 4 Ronsky faint. Those are pretty obvious. They're just the
Yep.
best tempo damage cards for their cost. And then the other stuff part of the deck is like where it starts to get a little combo-y with Hogsmeade Station. And then all of these cards that are like kind of utility based now also ramp you when you play Hogsmeade Station. So you can play like searching for the snitch, and then now everything's too cheaper with Hogsmeade Station. And then you ramped an additional one because you have Lynch in play, and you found like your victory party, and then you play victory party to ramp again, get more actions, and then now you're off to the races with out of control, flying laps, loop the loops, like the cards
Yep.
that really shut the door on your opponent. So
Yeah, for those who play Magic, this deck is very similar to like a mono red burn type of deck. Like it's just trying to be, I'm not gonna focus on what my opponents are doing. I'm just gonna do the thing faster. And it just was off to the races. I love that it played out of control because that's one of my favorite Quidditch cards. I just think I love the art, number one. The art on that card is just awesome with Harry like falling out of control. But then also just 6 damage, discard 4 cards. Like that is brutal. It's
it's
so hard to deal with.
it's very punishing when you have to
So
discard four
punishing.
cards from your hand. And
Yeah.
the deck also just doesn't run out of gas because you can find Flying Laps, Loop the Loops really easily with searching for the snitch. You play them when you have Hogsmeade Station out. You can dig for things even with timeout.
Yep.
Top six is pretty easy to find at least something good in there. And then you draw in a card immediately because you have Lynch. So
Yep.
a lot of cool stuff going for it. I would say there's not enough interaction with your opponent. Yeah, it's focused on just I am going to go faster than you.
Yes.
There is nothing that like discards your opponent's cards. There's stuff in the sideboard. He's got 4 orchard pitches, just more locations for location wars, 4 smashes, and then 4 electric fireplaces and 3 charms to try to like fight adventures, which
Yep.
probably came in against you, right?
So there was one game where he did play Electric Fireplace, but the issue was with only 3 charms. You're drawing a lot of cards, sure, but also that's only 3 charms. And if your opponent's doing damage, like that just is decreasing the likelihood that you're gonna get to play them.
Yeah, so it's a little hard. And dedicating like 7 slots for an off color and
Yeah.
3 lessons to make it played feels a little not too consistent to me. I think I would be looking for other ways to answer adventures, probably like Filch rather than Electric Fireplace.
Yeah,
If it
those would
were
be a
me,
great idea.
just because that's a lot of sideboard space to put in.
Well, I think part of the issue with Fireplace as well is that since it's a location, it's going to
Mhm.
get rid of your station. So
Yes.
you're kind of in like a location wars with yourself at that point. And
Yeah.
station is what really made the deck go. I had discarded station again during our first match, and it just slowed him down so much because that extra 2 power taken off is huge. It's so big. So you don't want to get rid of your own card at that point. So I think Filch would have been better. I think there's an adventure or there's a Quidditch card now that gets rid of an adventure. So that could have been a great play too, because it would have triggered Lynch and taken care of the adventure. But I think it's a spell, so maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's super cool deck. I'd love to see Hogsmeade Station in this sort of
Yeah.
like aggro tempo-ish shell because that's honestly originally the home that I thought it would be in when I designed the card. Great to see it being played like that.
Yeah. No, it was very
Stuff.
cool. And I love that Lynch was up there too. That made me happy too.
If you've ever like tried to play Cadigan, Lynch is just like the exact same thing as Cadigan, except like instead of playing all evens, you're playing Quidditch.
Yep.
Pros and cons.
Yeah, it's a strong card. We'll see what happens in the next tournament and if the deck
Yeah.
evolves or if he goes in a different direction entirely.
If I know anything about him, he's extremely enamored with Faldo. So
That's true.
yeah, my bet would be something with Quidditch.
Probably. Well, so that's actually a really great transition into my deck, which was Transfiguration, Creatures, and Potions. And I got some heat because I didn't play Quidditch, and people thought it was blasphemy that I did not play Quidditch. So I'm glad somebody in the tournament was at least holding the pillar up when I left it alone. So that's good.
Let's say something here. Sammy likes cards that are not Quidditch.
I
This might be like news to other people, but he has
Newsflash.
cards that he likes
Yep.
that are not Quidditch. One of them's Malevolent Mixture,
Yeah, I love
which,
that card.
surprise, surprise, is in the deck. Another one is That Cat. He loves that card.
Yep.
Uh,
Chamber of Secrets. Like there's
yeah,
so many. Yeah.
he
So
loves this card.
yeah, my deck, the entire point of my deck was I saw Squid Tentacles, which I think one of the two of us had actually designed. And I
Mhm.
was like, I want to play this card. I'm going to build a deck around it. We were talking on a podcast, I think, back in the spring. We had said that there haven't been a lot of creature decks in tournaments,
Yes.
and they've kind of fallen out a little bit. So at the time, I joked that I was going to make a creature deck, and I think you did too.
Yeah.
And then I made a creature deck, and people were like, blasphemy. And I said, I told you guys this like 6 months ago. Um, So I started with essentially creatures and just like the typical creature shell, like Sandstone Gargoyle. I ran one Monster Book of Monsters, I think. I capped out at Welsh Green. I ran Cornish Pixie, Hedwig, Bundamun Ooze, or sorry, just Bundamun was the new creature for me. Crookshanks turned into such a great card. If you run
Crookshanks.
creatures up to 6 power, run Crookshanks. And then I was like, all right, well, I have these creatures and I want to run Squid Tentacles. So what potion cards do I do? And so my thought was like, well, let's run one potion card to counter everything that could be played. Every type of like card. So I ran Chamber of Secrets, 12 Years in Azkaban, Azkaban itself. I ran Mistbrewed Polyjuice, which ended up doing 28 damage to Nick during our first game. And like he was shocked that it was played. And then I had some sideboard stuff like Tensa Blaze and whatnot. But then my big thought was, what do I do for a starter? And I'm like, well, McGonagall is just an all around good starter.
Yeah.
Why not? And that gave me access to like Table Trouble, Drawing the Sword. I did run Stairs into Slides main deck to discard some stuff. So yeah, that was kind of the point of my deck. It was like a mid-rangey creature kind of deck, anti-meta in some ways, and it got first place my first time ever in 5 years. So that
Yeah.
was a win for me.
Congratulations.
I was shocked at that. But yeah, so that was my deck.
I think when I looked at the list for the first time, I was like, wow, this is a very Sammy list.
Yeah.
I wonder who
Yep.
made this deck.
It's just a lot of the cards I also just like playing. Some
Yeah.
of them like I helped to design and I just I don't know, I just really liked a lot of the cards. So
Yeah.
that's where the deck came from.
And it worked out really well. One card
Yeah.
I want to talk about, I don't think you talked about it, is Through the Arch.
Yes.
You said it turned out to be extremely good against Izzy's deck, where
Yeah.
his deck is just all spells.
It's all spells. It's
Yeah.
spells and gas. That's all it is.
Like
No, it did
his,
super well.
it's a card that like you said that people were surprised that you were playing it main board, right?
I got 2 comments after the tournament. They're like, wow, you mainboard Through the Arch? And I said, of course I mainboard Through the Arch. I either
Yeah.
mainboard that or I mainboard Hiding from Snape. And then I sideboard the one I'm not mainboarding. Like that's how I build almost every single deck. Very
Yeah.
like template.
The thing with Through the Arch is that it's just most decks run spells. You
Yeah.
can just mainboard this against basically anything, and it'll hit
Yeah.
something that it'll just make them super awkward. Like no one wants to spend 4 actions to get rid of this card. So,
Exactly.
and a lot of the cards that get rid of adventures are actually just spells.
Yep.
Stuff like picking on Neville, all the random removal stuff, even Apparate. If you're looking for a really low cost card that gets rid of adventures, Apparate is really cool. Shout outs to Kai for running Apparate in your sideboard.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But like, unfortunately, Through the Arch says no, you cannot play Apparate on me.
Yeah, no,
Which
it
is-
was incredible.
So this is a card that you should consider running. It's a card that I really didn't wish existed in the game, but like I've made my peace with it.
It has a really, really great spot. And it helps against decks kind of like Izzy's that just kind of can go off. And spells are hard to interact with otherwise. So just
Yeah.
preventing them is also a good thing.
Yeah. And then the other one is I don't think he talked about Welsh Green Dragon, except a little obliquely when we were talking about Nikki's deck. But Welsh Green Dragon, really good card. Really
Yeah.
nice to see it come back. It was like one of the premier staples of even '05 McGonagall
Yeah.
creature.
Yeah, it was like the top thing that you would try to do is just Welsh Green. And I still think it's probably the best creature or one of the best and just the best like high end to kind of get to. It's just really good. Ironically, we're recording this episode right after we had a design call where we talked about more dragons.
That's
a
nice.
lot of dragons.
Into talking about, let's talk about a dragon.
Yeah.
Which dragon do you want to talk about?
I don't know. There are going to be at least 3 dragons, if not more, in this set coming up next year. So that's going to be super
Oh.
exciting.
I know which dragon we should talk about.
Go ahead.
My rejected design, Dragon Egg.
Which is not going to be an actual card, sadly.
But there's going to be a really exciting card that will work really well with dragons, and that is called Charlie Weasley.
Yes.
Who is a character that says if you have 8 or more lessons in play, you may ignore additional costs on cards you play. Once you hit 8 lessons, if you want to play that Welsh Green Dragon, you're just not discarding any lessons when you play it. Of course, all of these are in like beta design area,
Yeah.
so Charlie might be
Yes.
changed because this is a
Very,
pretty
very
spicy
early.
card.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm excited to start to play like these cards that were really hard to play, like Phoenix Tears and Elixir
Yes.
of Life. These cards that are really cool, but I just struggle to see play because their additional cost is way too high.
Yeah, and
But
that's an exciting thing that we can do as we make new sets is we can look at those old cards and we can make them playable. Or
yeah,
maybe not tournament playable, but we can at least like make them function now so they're doing
yeah.
something. So it's not as much of a feel bad when you play it and somebody like pick on Neville your Hungarian Horntail or something eat as soon as you play it. Or whatever
Uh,
dragons exist, Hybridian Black Dragon or whatever.
so yeah, that'll be a cool card. Might also see play with Welsh Green Dragon, because Welsh Green Dragon does a lot for its
Yes.
cost.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, we'll
yeah,
see.
cool stuff. Cool deck, cool stuff, cool tournament. Went through all of the decks. I don't think we normally do that, but it was fun to sit down and talk about these and
Yeah.
our thoughts on them. If I was slightly negative on your deck, I'm sorry. But I did love all of them. I thought it was extremely weird, and that's good. I don't like seeing the same deck over and over again. When there were like two Love Potion decks, I was like, this is way too many in the previous tournament. So
And it's cool to make us who like talk about these cards all the time as we're designing cards see
yeah,
something and we're just like, oh, that's different. And then
yeah,
we have to actually think about the cards in a different way and like what it's really, really neat to see. Good job, everybody. But you wanted to talk about some interesting Quidditch World Finals cards that were played.
yeah. I think we touched on most of them. Lynch, really cool starter. Omniocular, seeing it a lot. In three decks, two of them running the Gringotts combo. I think this card being printed also was a reason why we did not see very many Draco decks, because when someone plays Omnioculars on you and you're Draco, you are just dead.
It sucks. Yeah. Well, so
And
that's interesting. Let's pivot on that real quick. Previous
yeah,
decks that we didn't really see in this tournament.
yeah.
I think the main one was really an item deck with Draco.
Just completely absent. I don't know.
This may be the first tournament ever that did not have a Draco Malfoy Slytherin deck. Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
first one that we've ever had without him.
probably right after we printed the most punishing anti-Draco card in game.
Possibly, possibly.
Who knows? Maybe Omnioculars is here to stay and Draco's not. Maybe Draco's gonna come back. Omnioculars is gonna fall out of favor.
Oh,
It's really
possibly.
tough to say.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
this was the first tournament in almost a year where McGonagall made an appearance as a starter. So that was also exciting. And that she won too, because she's been
yeah,
missing for the past year. So that was
yeah.
awesome.
Like I said in the last tourney podcast, I think it was like it's strange that we didn't see any McGonagall creatures, but I feel like people
Yeah.
just think that McGonagall creatures is boring.
Hopefully I
And
showed that they're not boring, but yeah.
and then we also saw two different, like very different McGonagall decks, where
Yes.
Steven's deck is kind of like a more combo-centric wit sharpening deck
Yeah.
rather than just like the good stuffs of your deck.
Yes, exactly.
And then you talked about Zograph, very, very cool card.
Yeah.
Winky as well in the same like kind of space of like your opponent has to start thinking a little bit more on their turn on like what are you waiting for with Zograph and Winky?
Yeah. And so some of the themes that we kind of saw in this tournament, the first one was just kind of a big question mark as we were grappling with like, why did people make some of these choices? Why were these cards played? Like, what kind of influence that? So there's just like a general, like, what kind of question mark? But I feel like a lot of that came because we released a new set of 90 cards and people were just testing a lot of new things. And when you release 90 new cards and 10 new starters or whatever it was, obviously decks are going to change, new decks are going to pop up, new strategies, which we saw in this tournament. And so between that and then also between the errata of Brass Scales, Hogwarts of History, and the ban of deboning, there's a lot of changes have happened. So I think that's why we were in such like a what kind of question as we were looking at the tournament and the results and the decks, because so much had changed and people were trying so many new things, which I'm really excited for people to try new things. Like that is always just a cool thing to see.
And also like these tournaments aren't actually like you don't have to come in with a competitive meta deck that's going to smash everyone else. Like, yeah, just come in with what you like and what you play, and sometimes you win the tournament like Sammy.
Yeah. And you get surprised and you're just like, oh my God, first time forever for everything.
Yeah, that's cool. Control decks were kind of like struggling
Yeah.
against these like more faster like pressure style decks. I think the best control or performing control deck was Ben's Time Turner Corridor deck, and
Which has been
which
around for
placed
so
third.
long.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of refinement into
Yes.
that, so not too surprising that he's doing well with that. The other ones, like I think Carter's Flitwick deck and then the Trelawney deck also are somewhat in like that control sphere.
Yeah.
And they definitely didn't do that well. I'm not sure exactly why, but maybe it's like we've been hitting those control pieces quite a bit because they do lead to negative play patterns, but also maybe we've been toning down like the upper end of like what you're trying to get to a little bit too much. With Hogwarts and History now gone, not gone, but like hard to get to, and then like Scribblifores and Invisible Ink.
Yeah, I don't want to get super like meta discussion about the history of
Sure.
the game and everything,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
when the game first came out, like if you look at the first two starter decks from base set, the original designers really seemed to be behind this idea that you're going to play creatures and do damage and win. And then as they release more sets, that feels like it kind of shifted into more of a control meta for the game. And then as we develop more cards, I think the control initially stayed a lot. And then there were a bunch of random things and control just got super dominant. So like you said, we just hit it so hard. So I want to see another tournament to see like what exactly control can do. But there's like the kind of this big arc shift of what has been the top deck. And I think that we've talked about before this kind of balance. And if you know trading card games, this balance between like a control deck, an aggro deck, and like a mid-range deck. And you kind of want them to all be strong against one and weak against one, or kind of on par with each other. You don't want one to be super
Yeah.
dominant. And the control just seemed super dominant before this tournament. And now it's kind of switched, which is fascinating. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that we have enough data or anything to say like, oh yeah, control's gone forever from this game. No one can play control anymore. I'm not all like doom and gloom about it, but
No.
just it's an interesting data point.
Yeah.
It's one that we should continue to watch and see what's going on.
Any last thoughts on any of the tournaments or decks or anything? Or do you feel like that wraps up kind of our thoughts about it?
Yeah, that's probably good enough.
I'll say in the next tournament, I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with the same type of deck because I have made changes because of the tournament already. So we'll see what I do, but maybe I'll go back to Quidditch and I will be called not Blasphemous anymore. So we'll see what I do in the next tournament.
Um,
But I do want to shout out that we are going to try a couple of different, I don't want to call them tournament events of various sorts over the next couple of months. And as people have ideas for tournaments, please let us know, or events. We will try to make whatever you have as an idea work. And one of the ideas is we're going to do a mini event, maybe a week long, where we assign all the players a previous tournament deck from somewhere over the past 5 years, and you have to use it in the event. So we're going to try some of these other new things. So be on the lookout for that very soon because it'll come up quite soon. And I'm super excited about what that could look like too.
Good chance to come in, play with some people. Low stakes, low stress.
Super low stakes, yeah.
Hopefully low stress. Don't stress out about this.
Yeah, it's purely for fun and to force you guys to use like old decks and whatnot.
Yeah, because old decks are pretty spicy sometimes. You look
They-
back and be like, why is someone playing like owls in the year of our Lord 2020 whatever?
right?
2019?
But make sure to follow us on all of our socials, join our Discord so you can build decks and play with us, follow our YouTube and everything else that we have out there. Look out for future events. We just released, I believe it was this past week, high def quality print versions of Diagon Alley and Adventure at Hogwarts. So if you're looking to print out some cards at home to play with, there are now print ready files on our website. If you need help printing, join our Discord. There's a printing channel. I believe somebody has a template there that you can use to print out cards too, which is super cool. And then hopefully we'll play some duels with you soon. We'll
Right?
see you guys.
Peace.